Winnipeg Blues. They traded off some major pieces in the offseason. Tanchak is now lighting it up in Niverville. Brandon Funk just had a couple goals for Steinbach. Luke Janis isn't with the club right now. He's doing things in the States. Take us through what your thoughts of the Winnipeg Blues and maybe the struggles they're going to have to find offense.
Yeah, I got a first-hand look at them last night in their preseason opener against the Winnipeg Freeze. A back-and-forth game, 6-5. This one ended in a shootout, and it was the Blues who fell behind 3-0 in the first period, 4-0 by, I think, the 5-minute mark of the second period. And then head coach Alex Mandolaitis kind of lit a fire under this team. So I think we'll say a lot of the same things about the Blues as we do the Freeze a little bit later on. This is a young club that's had a lot of turnover. They do have one veteran goaltender, River Leslie Toogood, which I think is really going to help steady that team on the back end for sure. A lot of speed on the blue line, not a whole lot of size though per se. So it'll be interesting to see how some of those teams with the bigger forward groups are able to attack, because we saw that team kind of get out forechecked a lot by the Freeze, who aren't the biggest team themselves last night. But there's a clear direction for both these Winnipeg clubs. I think they're kind of following the same formula. Will be really interesting to see where the goals come from though, because it seems like we're a long departure from a couple of seasons ago with that Blues team that made the playoffs and then lost their 6 top scorers in one offseason.
Yeah, like they were so electric. Like anytime that top 6 touched the puck, you thought it was going in the net. And now it's almost like anytime the other offense touches the puck, you're worried you're going to be pulling it out of their net. Kevin, again, like so many teams are going to have to deal with this throughout the year. Different homes. There's a bunch of teams that are nomads, Steinbach included, of course. What is it going to mean to Winnipeg to be able to just set up at the Hockey for All Center and play there all year without worrying about moving around like they have the last couple of years that had that concern?
I think the consistency is one less variable that they'll have to worry about. Further to what Skylar said, where's the scoring going to come from? You're going to play a bunch of other established teams that maybe have a little more size to them, maybe a little more speed. So it's about figuring out what the positive takeaways you can from night to night. And if you have a steady place at home, then, it's one less thing to worry about and another thing to just focus on what the task at hand is.
Benny, are teams in the West looking at the Blues as like point night? Are they looking at taking 2 points consistently? How are they viewed from outside the East Division?
Yeah, I don't think any league like that in junior A hockey, I don't think it's going to be point night. But you just got to know as a West Division team going into those places, they're going to be a hardworking team. Those teams that are in the East that are younger teams, maybe don't know how the offensive punch that some of the other teams go. You got to make sure you're the hardest working team out there because they're going to work hard. They're going to be good defensively and in nets. And like you said, with the Skylar saying their goaltenders coming back and get veteran presence in the back end, you got to make sure you don't think it's just point nights. You got to make sure you do things right offensively, manufacture things on the special teams. So I think if teams are doing that early on, especially early on this season, I think it might be a problem. So you don't want to drop those games as West Division teams. If you're thinking a contender to teams on the other side, maybe that maybe aren't in the top echelon of that division. So I think if they do that, I think the mindset if they do that is not going to be good for West Division teams.
Absolutely. We saw how critical points are. I mean, it's the difference between getting in and missing the playoffs. It's the difference between hosting the first round of the playoffs or even where you go in the second round because, of course, it reseeds. So every point, it doesn't matter if it's September or if it's later in the year, they all matter. And Darnell, speaking of mattering, sometimes team wins are a little bit more valued than individual wins. And I know the Blues have had a history of guys being able to put the team on their back, but this year it seems like it's going to be by committee. Just what does that do to bond a locker room? And what does that what will that maybe bring to the Blues as the year goes on?
Well, I think that means a lot. And I just want to echo Benny's point. I mean, I hate the point night reference. I absolutely hate that going in and you're trying to rack up 7 points. I think you have to go in as a team. You have to be disciplined. But if you are a Winnipeg Blues team, come out of the gate, get a couple of wins out against good East Division teams or West Division teams, and that can really catapult you and give you that confidence. They're going to be relatively inexperienced, but if they can come out of the gate and get a big win, stay close in games, work hard every night, give everything they have, that could bode well. Yes, probably on paper right now, the Winnipeg Blues, it's going to be a tough season, but it's their own book to write, their own chapter, and it all starts with coming out, working honestly, working hard every game and trying to do what you can. I mean, it's hockey at the end of the day. These guys are 17 to 20-year-olds. Literally anything can happen on any given night. Even with the Winnipeg Freeze last year, they were competing against some of the top teams in the league because that can happen if you put together a full 60 plus minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Blues can do. If they can come out of the gate and try and get on a little bit of a roll or beat some top echelon teams, it could be an interesting season for them.
Skylar, what would constitute a successful year for the Winnipeg Blues? Is it wins on the ice? Is it, getting the level of the program back to level? Is it taking steps? What is a successful year for the Winnipeg Blues?
Well, I think with a roster that's got a lot of young players and a whole lot of turnover, in the first half of the season, I think if Alex Mandelitis can identify, the three guys that he wants to go to when they need a goal, say they're down a goal in the third period. And then likewise, you need to find two guys on the back end that are going to keep the puck out of your own net. I think that's going to go a long way to racking up the wins in the second half of the season. This is a team that probably needs to find a little bit of an identity. And I think they could challenge for that fourth and final playoff spot in what's going to be a really tough East Division this year. I mean, there are no slouches. There are no easy games when you're playing within the division this year, for sure. There's going to be a lot of good rivalries brewing. Certainly, the Battle of Winnipeg got off to a great start last night, even between those two teams. And I know that Jay Pilipuk, the coach of the Freeze, and Alex Mandelitis, they're going to look right across the boardroom table at each other, and one of them is going to want to be on top of the other at the end of the season. So those games are going to be a lot of fun to do, that's for sure.
Yeah, even down the stretch, if Winnipeg can be in a position to take points away from the top teams in the East or West Division, I'm sure that is something that is going to build character down the road, regardless of where they finish this year. Palsy, just from a league standpoint, Winnipeg's the biggest market, obviously. How important is it for them to find success to keep the MJHL strong?
I think it's indeed important. I mean, you look at it from a draft standpoint, both of these teams have their auto protect list from the biggest center in the province. So it behooves them to build towards something. And I think, like Skylar was saying, you got this kind of unique scenario with these two teams that are within the same principal organization. I think it really has to. We need Winnipeg as one of the major centers and maybe the jewel of the crown for the MJHL to be successful and to drive the rest of the league along. They have the fan base, they have the player base, and by all accounts, we need their success as well.
And let's not underestimate the fact that the Winnipeg Ice are gone now. That's one fewer junior hockey team. Obviously, all three of these teams come under the same umbrella. But just from being around the team and, kind of getting my feet wet the last couple of weeks here as we approach the season, you can tell that a lot more care is being taken towards both the Freeze and the Blues by the folks up top in the front office. And that can only do good things for both these clubs. So I think that's going to be a really important thing moving forward.
And I also think it's crucial. We talk about, getting better as the season goes on and trying to rack up wins in the second half of the season. I think you got to start by winning hockey games on September 22nd. I mean, that's when the season starts, and it's only going to get tougher to win games, especially against those top echelon teams when they make trades at the deadline and as the season progresses. I mean, if you're a Winnipeg team and you want to have a chance of getting that top four spot, I mean, the East has some really good teams led there by perhaps the Steinbach Pistons, but I think it's crucial to win games starting September 22nd if you want to have any chance of getting that top four spot.
Yeah, and the Blues have faded in the past. They have ran out of gas and they've coughed up some points down the stretch. So yeah, it doesn't matter when, just rack up the wins.